Now we're going to move to how priorities have changed as a result of the crisis in terms of, how you allocate your budgets for IT and IT infrastructure and tools and collaboration and so forth. We'll go back to the panel now, and we'll go in the opposite direction. We'll start with Pathmal now. What have you seen from Tata's perspective in terms of, and responding, I suppose, to your customers in terms of what sorts of priorities they have now as they kind of work through this and get to the other side?
Yeah. Thank you, Brad. So our portfolio consists of 4 pillars: network, cloud, UCC, and mobility, IoT. And on the network cloud side, I think everybody's moving to the cloud, right? So that's a given in a situation like this. And one thing we've seen is many of our customers were building networks to connect their office locations and optimize all of that. And we never planned to have our entire workforce working from home.
Yeah.
And that brings a whole different set of challenges. The endpoint security, the VDIs, and all that is stuff that comes together, right? And how do we package that solution to have all your workloads, all your apps running out of the cloud, and optimize that so that people can work from home and drive SAP HANA and all that stuff in a remote location. Workforce experience, customer experience with contact centers, etc. And so that's a trend that we saw. I think with all of you would agree with work from home brought a different set of challenges, and that's a trend that we see. And I don't think also going forward that's going to change, right? On your slide, I think 2 or 3, you talked about, Brad, how the going into next year it's going to look like. So that's one area. On the UCC side, on the collaboration perspective, right? We are here on a video call. That also was a trend that we saw in the industry. How to enable your workforce to work from home? How do you get your customers to work from home? The sales motion that we used to see in the past, where you go out and meet a customer face to face, the business is still continuous, right? So it's so all of our roadmaps, all of the customers' roadmaps that we've seen, we saw three stages. One was the customers who already were in cloud, so that was a very easy transition for them. The others who had a roadmap, who had milestones, going into cloud and enabling that, all the apps and everything, they had to just compress the timelines and get the ball rolling on that. And then there's a third category who is still at the early phase in thinking through, conceptualizing, and building their vision and strategy on the IT roadmap. I think they were forced in and accelerate the roadmaps in order to accommodate the evolving situation. And then when you go to IoT mobility side, especially in the industrial manufacturing side, the factories now are opening up. How do we manage the social distancing with the factory flow, worker safety? So there's all kinds of applications evolving as we speak. So it's a big shift, but it's nothing new. I think every IT organization had a roadmap. It's just how we adapted to the situation.
Yeah, it's funny when you mentioned the sales motion. We've heard other organizations talk about that in terms of, obviously you can't take your customers out to lunch. Maybe you can do a virtual lunch, but you have to find other ways of engaging with them, right? And having the discussions that matter to the customer. So great observations. Christina, I know from you probably have an interesting take on this in terms of when you think about Oracle's business, includes cloud, includes obviously the well-known database, the applications, the workforce performance management capabilities. There's a whole range of products and services. Obviously, from your perspective, how have priorities changed as you look to get through the rest of this crisis and come out the other side?
Thank you, Brad. And yes, Oracle, we offer the entire stack. So we fuel from a global perspective customers, not only from a software, hardware, but certainly services perspective. So the headline, I always say, is moving from physical to digital. And let me give you 3 trend lines. Number 1, we're not thinking near shore, offshore, or onshore. We're thinking the digital shore. And how do we continue to, in many ways, look at that digital shore and how we will continue to invest in capabilities, whether it's touchless transactions or other ways that we really continue to look at that, maybe fourth shore. And we've even coined that as a new term, the digital shore. Second, we've actually seen a dynamic that's been pretty amazing with our customers. Now, we have to recognize that this particular period of time, we're all on an equal playing field, meaning everyone is working from home except for those critical resources. So we have been able to, in many cases, I'll use our CEO, Safra Katz, as an example. She's been amazing being able to meet with customers because now there's not that schedule, and being able to travel and being in another country and then having to, in many cases, travel to another place. I've actually witnessed her being able to meet with someone in Hong Kong, then meet with someone perhaps in Switzerland, and then to turn around and end the day with someone in the US. And that's a pretty amazing capability for her to get out and be with those customers. I've been on one call, and I can tell you she's as good in person as she is in a virtual setting. And she was meeting with a very, very important enterprise customer and their CDO, Chief Digital Officer, as well as their CFO. Second is absolutely the physical of investment in facilities to how do we literally rebalance our budget and look at more investment in technology. So this is an opportunity for companies to really look at, in many ways, their 3-year plan, an 18 to 36-month plan of where and how do they really want to rethink work. And how do you move from these physical buildings to, in many cases, more remote working, because we've seen it work for us, which has been very amazing. Now, let's use the third trend line, and this is with customers. Cloud, in my humble opinion, not just because I work for Oracle, but I've always been a huge believer in technology in terms of aiding and improving productivity. But we really see our customers where cloud was a good idea, it's now a business imperative. How can they move there? How can we help them move there? Collectively on this roundtable, how do we help customers move to that digital shore? Because this is the type of threat that no one has a crystal ball. So plan for the worst, hope for the best, and hopefully us as technologists and cloud providers, we can help everyone. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Great observations. And, you know, we probably have, just like your CEO, we probably have other CEOs who are following the sun, so to speak, with their video engagements with customers around the world. It's a long day for them, but I'm sure it's very rewarding for them and for the business and for the customers. Russ, from your perspective at NetScout, what sort of reprioritizations have you folks made in light of this in light of this crisis?
So I'm going to look at it more from the perspective of our overall user community. And I do want to carry on the cloud discussion a little bit. I was looking at actually your network infrastructure market glance earlier today. And it's cloud and cloud-like deployments that are really kind of top of mind for most of our customers. You know, some, it makes sense for them to do public cloud. Others are really looking at private cloud technologies and how they're going to implement that. Where they deploy, who knows? You know, there might be private data center, it all depends. But the reality is the ability to spin up services as quickly and responsively as possible is really what people are looking for. They want to be able to adapt, right? And I think that the point that everybody made here about everybody being in a level playing field is certainly part of the situation that we've had. We've had a degree of forgiveness that has come back. I think Christina spoke to that in her earlier time. And I don't know that that's going to maintain. You know, I think that when we start to look at collaboration services, for example, people are starting to say, hey, you know, we got to take another look at who we use. This service isn't working for us. That service isn't working for us, and try to adapt and change. And I think we're going to see that happen in our user communities a little bit as well, that they're going to say, hey, you know what, I want to be seen as effective and instrumental in the success of the company as those that choose to come back to the office. So we're going to have to try and ensure that we have an equitable approach to delivering services to the new remote workforce.
Yep, absolutely, and I think that point is bang on. Bill, I know from an NetApp perspective, obviously, data is extremely salient to what you folks do. How have you seen requirements change or your needs change, and how are you reprioritizing for those?
Yeah, let me, first of all, great comments by the panelists here. Let me build on something that Christina said, because I really like that joining of cloud and customer, right? For us, migrating from on-prem storage solutions to true cloud-based, point and click build outs of storage capabilities around the globe in a hybrid multi-cloud world is part of our journey. So we've been on this real focus on redefining the customer journey for the last 2 years. So going from traditional salespeople going out and meeting enterprise customers and developing that relationship to how do I reach out? What telemetry, what data do I glean about customers coming to our websites, trying our products, bringing down pilot versions of software, and nurturing that experience through that journey as a true cloud business. That's really new to NetApp, right? And agree with what Russ said. I think we're all going to be cloud companies over time, and we have to exercise and develop some new muscles around those customer journeys where you don't necessarily reach out and touch everybody. Yeah. So I do a lot of executive briefing center sessions, and normally I would have done 2 or 3 visits on our California campus to briefings with customers and speaking with them, or maybe even hosting them as the executive sponsor in these meetings. I'm doing all that virtually now. I've accepted a couple of meetings coming up in a few weeks, one in India and one in Hong Kong. In the past world, I probably would have chosen to maybe go to one of those meetings and make it part of a visit to my teams in that region of the world. Now I'm doing both of them. And the only real change is I have to tell my wife I'm not having that glass of wine at dinner because I have to be cogent for the session later on in the evening that I'm going to do from afar. But we're bringing people in from around the globe. That's the expectation. Something that might have been a half-a-day session is now a 2-hour session. And there's a silver lining on a lot of these things. So we look at these as challenges we have to overcome. But there's really wonderful opportunities. So let me give you an example. In the past, maybe we would have had a hard time getting an SVP or a CIO into one of these sessions to talk about data rather than storage, because that individual wouldn't want to schedule travel or couldn't give up a whole day or a half a day to come to one of these meetings. Now you can surgically carve out a piece of time to go over the material they're interested in, and they'll be part of this virtual experience for that period of time. So there's opportunity to reach out and touch and engage with our customers in a new way that's very positive and advantageous to everyone involved. And I think we have to look to leverage those opportunities and not sit and pine over the way we used to do business, which wasn't necessarily the way we were going to do business in the future anyway. So I think this new cloud era, really appreciating the customer journey and how we nurture those customers and take advantage of this in a truly digital environment is something that we've all got to be passionate about to be successful.
Absolutely. As you had a chance to step back, you saw the opportunities rather than the risks or the drawbacks of the crisis, right? The opportunities that were suddenly available. And I think that's a very positive way and also a healthy way of looking at any crisis. Dan, from your perspective at Keysight, any changes in terms of the priorities, at least in the near term, that were occasioned by the crisis?
Well, a renewed sense of urgency for what a lot of our product teams are working on. So Keysight is helping to accelerate innovation to improve connectivity. Everything we're talking about with cloud comes down to being able to connect. Can you connect at scale? Can you connect at speed? And we have a lot of solutions we're working on, be it 5G to replace LTE for 2 orders of magnitude increase in bandwidth with much lower latency, or in the hyperscale data centers trying to bring 400 gig Ethernet to market, but down to the chipsets going to 5 nanometer inside of our smartphones so that we've got better power utilization of our compute devices. So we're working across all of those domains. And what we're pivoting to now is how can we accelerate our own work to bring to market these capabilities for everybody to better connect. And so our initial response was, how do we get everyone to connect from home? Now that everyone's home, how do we get everyone to thrive? How do we get everyone to reimagine how they work? And a simple example that kind of comes to mind for me, a lot of our software engineers, as Bill mentioned, it turns out are more productive doing their development work from home. That's great. But when we looked at our hardware engineers, we saw a steady decline. These are the guys who need network analyzers, oscilloscopes, signal generators, a whole garage full of equipment. Well, it's not surprising that our heritage, go back to the Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard days, the original HP electronic test and measurement business, that's Keysight, and it all started in a garage. Now we've got dozens, if not hundreds of engineers who have filled their own garages with equipment. And they're trying to connect all of this formerly unconnected equipment into the Keysight network. And we're trying to reimagine how would we do connectivity from people's garages full of instruments. That's a new priority. It hadn't even dawned on us that we might need to figure out how to do that. We just thought it was about bringing your laptop home and VPNing back into the home office. It's a completely different paradigm when you embrace how do people work in the new norm, and you look at hardware engineers in a variety of different roles and how what it's going to take for them to be productive.
Yeah, that's a big challenge, right? Telework, test and measurement, and almost HPC-like capabilities in some cases. That's a tall order.
Yep.
Absolutely. Varesh, I know F5 well from application delivery infrastructure. Within the company and without, in terms of customers, how have you reprioritized or reallocated resources?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say a reprioritization, but just a renewed focus and energy in terms of the things we were already doing. Over the last 3 years, the company has been on a massive shift from being a hardware company to a software company, and to enable our customers on their code to customer journey, and to be able to enable that in a multi-cloud environment. And so, we double downing on that and making sure we can accelerate to that path. There are 3 big focus areas for us right now. The first one is what we're calling digital agility. We believe that the primary competitive differentiator over the next 5 to 10 years is going to be digital agility. It's going to be an organization's ability to pivot and react and respond very quickly to market conditions. And the pandemic is a perfect example of that. So we're retooling our entire backend platform, system tools, people, processes to be able to enable this level of digital agility. We focused on the overall workplace experience. We're focusing on automation everywhere and everything. We focused on self-service, self-solve. We focused on mobile and enabling mobile throughout the environment. We focused on, taking down these monolithic systems and moving to microservices-based environments. We also focused on redefining our ways of working. We now have a global distributed digital workforce. And how do we engage with these group of people in fundamentally new ways? So again, we're redefining, what we previously called our rhythm of the business. Well, that needs to fundamentally change. In the new ways of working, it calls for thinking about that fundamentally differently. So again, we're looking at tools, technologies, processes that just change the way we work with one another. And then the last thing that we focused on is what we're calling a unified customer and employee experience. We have what we call the infinity loop. We describe it as the buy side of the customer experience and the own side of the customer experience. And we're redefining in this new way of working fundamentally how that entire experience runs and operates. One of the panelists earlier talked about the sales motion. And yeah, we are fundamentally reinventing our sales go-to-market and our sales motion with clients. The number of customers that are now willing to engage with us from a remote support perspective Before it was always, we're touching things in the data center, and like we want boots on the ground. We're now in an environment where they're actually comfortable with us doing a lot of remote support. So what does that look like in the new way of working? From a salesperson perspective, our sales engineers, their prowess around Zoom technology is unbelievable. It's off the charts. Who would have thought that unified communication, video, videography, and those type of skills are going to be required skills in the new way of working? But certainly we have that. So we're running a lot of training around how to run Zoom and video and lighting and mood, and how do you create energy within a Zoom call. We would have never done stuff like that before. And so, you're starting to see invigorating, engaging remote conversations that otherwise wouldn't take place. But all said, I think it all still underpins this theme around human first and enabling digital agility. That's our primary focus right now.
Yeah, it's a great point. I just wanted to elaborate on just very briefly on something you said about automation. I only had so many slides I could present, but we saw a lot of enterprises come back in the surveys and say, yes, we recognize certainly from a data center out perspective and across the network, the importance of intelligent automation, right? That includes visibility across the spectrum and across the landscape where applications reside. Because as you said, there are times, as this crisis demonstrated, when you can't get people into buildings, and you need to be able to rely on automation as a core piece of any business continuity strategy going forward. I think great observation. Kevin, I wonder if you could provide some insight from Dell's perspective. I know to talk about obviously a company with an extensive portfolio and all the way from the endpoint to the data center and the cloud.
Right. I thought a lot of these comments were great. I think one of the things for us is, as we started coming around what we hoped wasn't going to be a big deal to, hey, this is really not good, to really now we have to kind of think about how do we set in for the long haul here. And we started just trying to think about how to leverage our very broad spectrum of technology across Dell and VMware. We had a lot of comments about cloud and how we're doing cloud and multi-cloud and how we're doing our team member experience and enabling our team members to work from home effectively. There's one thing to pick up your laptop and go home, but then there was a universe of users who might not have even had a laptop, and how do we get them laptops and get them home and working well? How do we get our call center agents working at home, doing remote support, and managing that whole thing across the world where we have team members and assets all over, including in our factories, and how do we maintain I thought the comments on the maintaining team member safety and customer safety is for us was always and is still the top priority and everything. And so for us, we're taking a very conservative approach in terms of how we are looking at the problem. And honestly, we can work at home for an extended period of time and be effective because a lot of the technologies we have in our bag of tricks comes right from our own family in most cases. And it's been really great to focus in on kind of, hey, what does this long haul view look like? And how do we maintain more of that conservative posture in terms of whether and how we're going to come back, right? So.